Hello and welcome back. Before I begin, I'd like to give a big thank you to iHeartBooks22, who's become my latest subscriber. Thank you very much for taking the time. I really appreciate your interest. And now, on with the haul. I'm going to start, as usual, with my borrowings from the Johns Hopkins University Library. And you may recall in my last movie haul, I got season 1 of a show called Weeds. And I said that it seemed like the sort of thing that I would either really like or really not like. And this may give you some indication of how that turned out. This week I got Weeds season 5 and season 6, which is 6 discs in all. And of course, because this is Hopkins, they messed up the cover, but they appear to have a bit of a sense of humor, because you'll note that usually when they do that, they use a blue paper, and for this show Weeds, they used green. Ha ha ha. Anyway. So obviously, as it turned out, I really like this show. It features just the most appalling characters. All the characters are just horrible, horrible people. The parents are horrible, the kids are horrible. They make just the stupidest, most immoral decisions every single time. They make the same mistakes over and over again. And yet I just cannot stop watching. It's kind of great, because when you hate the characters that much, the writers are free to do all this horrible stuff to them, and it doesn't really matter. So it's never boring, there's never a dull moment. And they did something really, I thought, audacious story-wise at the end of season 3, and something that I think in a weaker show just would not have worked at all. I don't want to give any spoilers, but basically they completely changed the setting from season 4 going forward, and sort of take them out of the setting you're used to seeing them in the first 3 seasons. But it really worked. And so these are the last 2 seasons that are available on home video. Apparently season 7 is going on now, and unfortunately I don't have Showtime, so I'm going to have to wait once I finish these. But anyway, Weeds, if you don't mind a show about just appalling characters, I highly, highly recommend this. And then, with my foreign selections from Hopkins, this was completely unintentional, but I realized I got 3 films from directors who all of whom had a pretty strong track record with me. I usually try to get at least one that I know I'm really going to like, and then, try to experiment with the other however many. And sometimes I'm completely wrong. But in this case, I got 3 films from directors with strong track records with pretty good results. I got Marcel Pagnol's Harvest, also known as Regain, and you may recall my featuring Pagnol's The Baker's Wife in an earlier movie haul. And I quite liked this one. I didn't like it quite as much as The Baker's Wife or another film he did called Angèle, but I quite enjoyed this. It's another pastoral, sort of romantic, comic, poignant fable all mixed together. And like The Baker's Wife, this is also based on a novel by Jean Giono. So I certainly recommend this. And then I got Nostalgia, which is a film directed by Andrei Tarkovsky, the great Russian director. And this is one of 2 of Tarkovsky's films that were not made in Russian. This one is in Italian, and The Sacrifice was made in Swedish. This is pretty much typical Tarkovsky. It's rather long, though certainly not as long as his longest films, and very, very strange and kind of slow-paced. But I just find his films incredibly involving, even if you spend half the time wondering what on earth is going on. They're just beautifully shot, and really, you just kind of have to take them on their own terms and just let them pull you in. And the key to enjoying a Tarkovsky film, I think, is, and it's kind of a cliche, but just enjoying the journey, not worrying so much about the destination. And I quite like this one. It's not my favorite. My favorite Tarkovsky films so far are Andrei Rublev and Stalker. Although now I've seen, he wasn't super, super prolific, so I've seen all his films except Solaris, which oddly enough is one of his most famous, but I have not gotten around to that yet. But this one's recommended. I wouldn't necessarily recommend it as the first Tarkovsky you see, but it's certainly worth watching. And last one from Hopkins is The Sun's Burial, directed by Nagisa Oshima. And Oshima is a bit of a notorious figure in Japanese cinema because he's best known for his film In the Realm of the Senses, which is just this extremely sexually explicit film, and which honestly I was not crazy about. It was a little bit extreme for me, even though I tend to watch, you know, a fair number of kind of arty indie films that feature some risky content. But that one I would not recommend it. But I've loved a lot of his other films. My favorite is probably Empire of Passion, which is just a really weird sort of ghost murder story. So Empire of Passion, highly recommended. This one I really liked too. It's this story of a group of feckless juvenile delinquents in a seedy neighborhood. And I'm not sure how well you can see it, but I just love the dress that this actress is wearing in this, in the cover photo and in the opening scene. I want that dress. And next, from University of Baltimore, I went a little more commercial and I got The Tourist. This one I was not sure about. I'm not a huge Johnny Depp or Angelina Jolie fan, and I had never heard of the director. And the story, it sounded like something that could either be quite entertaining or really not terribly good. But for some reason it just pulled me. And my instincts were right. I quite liked this. It's not great cinema or anything, but I enjoyed it and I would recommend it if you're just in the mood for something fun. And then from the University of Baltimore Diversity Collection, I got My Family, Mi Familia, which is a Mexican-American family saga. And not the greatest film I've ever seen, but certainly enjoyable. It has a good cast, Jimmy Smits, S.I. Morales, Edward James Olmos. But what really kind of threw me was that somebody, let me see who it was. Now I'm gonna lose it. Who said this? Oh, Roger Ebert, it's on the front, is comparing this to The Godfather, which I really don't get the comparison at all. I mean, I'm not a huge fan of The Godfather. I liked it all right, but so I'm not saying, oh, this isn't nearly as good as The Godfather. I'm just saying, okay, it's a multi-generational sort of immigrants family saga, but really not much in common with The Godfather, but still an enjoyable film. Then from Stevenson University, I got this French film, Let It Rain, by Agnès Jaoui. This is the first of Jaoui's films I've seen, or honestly, I'm a little embarrassed by this, but I didn't finish watching it. And I'm embarrassed because it wasn't a horrible film or anything. It wasn't bad. I just sort of felt like I'd seen this kind of thing before and didn't really feel the need to see it again. It's one of these very talky French films, and it's about a woman who agrees to be interviewed for a documentary, and it didn't grab me, so I didn't finish it. But that's not to say that it's a terrible film or anything. I just wasn't really in the mood. And then from the Sights and Sounds department of the Enoch Pratt Free Library, I was incredibly excited to get this film, Inspector Bellamy, which is Claude Chabrol's last film. He died, I believe, last year, and Chabrol is one of my favorite directors. I think I've featured some of his other films in my other hauls. And I'd seen previews for this, and it looked quite good. I found it very underwhelming. It just never really pulled me in or pulled me along. It wasn't a terrible film, but I can't say I would really recommend it. There are lots of other Chabrol films you should be looking at beforehand. Merci pour le chocolat, The Bridesmaid. Those are just the two off the top of my head. But he's a great director. This is just not his greatest film. And last but not least, I got this film, The Loveless, which is a retro biker homage starring Willem Dafoe in what this claimed was his first film role. I think it was certainly his first starring role, and directed by Kathryn Bigelow. I wasn't really sure what to expect because I love the, I guess you could call them classic biker movies from the 60s, 70s, late 50s, but biker homages and genre homages in general kind of are hit or miss. For instance, I tried to watch Larry Bishop's Hell Ride, which was another biker homage, and couldn't even finish it. And Kathryn Bigelow, I'm sort of up and down on. I really liked her film Strange Days, but The Hurt Locker I just thought was incredibly overrated. So I had no idea what to expect with this, and I wound up quite liking it. It wasn't, I wouldn't say rush out and see this, but if you're a fan of Willem Dafoe or biker movies, you could certainly do a lot worse. I rather enjoyed it. And if you've made it this far, thanks for watching, and I hope you'll join me for my next video.